The silence inside Chongsong that night was the kind that makes your ears ring. You know that feeling when something terrible is about to happen and the whole world holds its breath? That's what it felt like when I heard the little girl screaming. I'm Lucy, by the way. Just a waitress trying to survive in New York. At least, that's what everyone thought. Seo Jun's booth was in the back corner, the one we never looked at directly. The one where men in expensive suits discussed things that made people disappear. His daughter Hannah was having a full meltdown, and two of his guards were trying to grab her arms. I should have stayed in the kitchen. I should have pretended I didn't see it. But I saw my little sister in that kid. The same wild panic in her eyes, the same way her hands were flapping, trying to make sense of a world that was too loud, too bright, too much. Manager Park was sweating bullets. Someone do something before. I stepped forward. My hands were shaking, but I picked up 2 chopsticks from an empty table. Then I started tapping. A simple rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. Hannah's screaming faltered. Her eyes locked onto my hands. I kept the rhythm steady, calm. I didn't speak. Didn't rush toward her. Just let the pattern fill the space where chaos had been. Slowly, so slowly I could hear my own heartbeat. She started breathing differently. The tension in her small body eased. I crouched down to her level, still tapping. Then I slid the chopsticks across the table toward her. Her tiny fingers picked them up. Copied the rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. When I finally looked up, Seo Jun was staring at me like I just performed a miracle. His expression wasn't gratitude. It was something more dangerous. It was interest. That's when I knew my carefully invisible life was about to shatter. The knock came at 2:47 a.m. I knew it was trouble because nobody knocks on a 4th-floor walk-up in Hell's Kitchen at that hour unless they're bringing bad news or worse intentions. The silence inside Chongsong that night was the kind that makes your ears ring. You know that feeling when something terrible is about to happen and the whole world holds its breath? That's what it felt like when I heard the little girl screaming. I'm Lucy, by the way. Just a waitress trying to survive in New York. At least, that's what everyone thought. Seo Jun's booth was in the back corner, the one we never looked at directly. The one where men in expensive suits discussed things that made people disappear. His daughter Hannah was having a full meltdown, and 2 of his guards were trying to grab her arms. I should have stayed in the kitchen. I should have pretended I didn't see it. I pressed my eye to the peephole, my father's old police instinct screaming at me to grab the kitchen knife. Seo Jun stood in my hallway, the actual head of the Baekdu Syndicate, in my building that smelled like old curry and broken dreams. My heart stopped. Miss Lucy. His voice was calm through the door. I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to hire you. I didn't open it. The restaurant has my application if you need references. This isn't about the restaurant. A pause. I know about your mother's medical bills. I know you're 3 months behind on rent. I know you've been selling your father's belongings just to keep the lights on. My blood ran cold. How did he? Open the door, Lucy. Or I'll have it open for you. I'd like to say I was brave, that I told him to go to hell. But when you're drowning, you don't question the hand that reaches down. You just grab it. I opened the door. He looked different without his entourage, smaller somehow, more human. Tired in a way that expensive suits couldn't hide. My daughter hasn't slept through the night in 8 months, he said quietly. She's been through 11 nannies. For child psychologists. 2 of them quit after 1 session. You calmed her in 90 seconds. Mr. Seo, I just. $20,000 a month. Cash. Plus medical insurance that will cover your mother's entire care facility bill. He pulled out an envelope. 1st month in advance. You move into my estate tomorrow. All you have to do is take care of Hannah. I should have said no. Every cell in my body, every lesson my detective father taught me, screamed to refuse. But I looked at the eviction notice on my counter, at the medical bills stacked like a tower of shame, at the phone that had stopped ringing because I couldn't afford to keep the service. What's the catch? My voice came out smaller than I wanted. His eyes met mine, and for a flash I saw something raw, something that looked almost like desperation. The catch, he said slowly, is that if you betray my trust, you won't just lose the job. You'll lose everything. I took the envelope. God forgive me, I took it. The estate wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined something cold, modern, all glass and steel like you see in Mafia movies. Instead, Seo Jun's mansion was a sprawling traditional Korean hanok that had been expanded with Western wings. It sat behind 12-foot walls in the Bronx, completely invisible from the street. The moment I stepped through the carved wooden gates, my skin prickled. I knew this place. Not like déjà vu, like actual, concrete memory. The layout of the courtyard. The position of the main house. The garden that wrapped around the eastern wing. I'd seen the blueprints before. In my father's case files. The ones he'd been obsessing over in the weeks before he died. The ones the police claimed were lost in the bribery investigation that destroyed his name. Your room is in the West Wing, the head of security said, a man who introduced himself only as Min. His eyes were flat, assessing. Hannah's room is adjacent. You're not to enter Mr. Seo's private office. You're not to speak to guests. You're not to leave the grounds without permission. I barely heard him. I was too busy counting doors, memorizing turns. My father had marked this house as primary target, evidence inside. He died 3 days after submitting a request for a search warrant. Miss Lucy. Min's voice sharpened. Are you listening? Yes, I lied, forcing my attention back. West Wing. Stay with Hannah. Don't wander. But I was absolutely going to wander. Because if my father had died trying to get inside this house, then somewhere in these walls was the proof that could clear his name. That could show the world he wasn't a dirty cop who'd taken bribes and gotten himself killed. He was a good man who'd gotten too close to the truth. I met Hannah that afternoon. She was sitting in a massive playroom filled with untouched toys, rocking slightly, her fingers tracing patterns only she could see. When she saw me, her eyes widened, recognition, then something that looked like relief. She picked up 2 pencils. Started tapping. Tap, tap, tap. I crouched down, my heart breaking a little. This kid was trapped here just like me. Maybe in different ways, but trapped all the same. Hey, I whispered. Want to show me your favorite things?
She didn't speak.
But slowly, she reached out and took my hand. And in that moment, standing in the house where my father had died, holding the daughter of the man who might have killed him, I made a decision. I was going to find the truth, even if it destroyed us both. 3 days in, and I'd learned 2 things about Hannah. She wasn't nonverbal because she couldn't speak. She was silent because she was terrified. And she was watching everything. I noticed it during breakfast on the East Terrace. Min brought Seo Jun his morning reports, and the moment Min's hand brushed the tea service, Hannah's entire body went rigid. Her breathing quickened. She dropped her spoon with a clatter that made everyone freeze. But she wasn't looking at her father. She was staring at Min with eyes that held pure, primal fear. Hannah. Seo Jun's voice was gentle but firm. Min has worked for me for 12 years. He's not going to hurt you. That's what he thought. But I'd grown up as a detective's daughter. I knew the difference between a child's irrational fear and a child who'd seen something she shouldn't have. Later that afternoon, I found Hannah in her closet, her safe space, drawing. She'd filled dozens of pages with the same scene, a man with a rectangular watch talking to shadows. In every picture, the man's watch had a distinctive red band. Min wore a watch with a red band. Hannah, I whispered, sitting beside her in the cramped darkness. Did you see something? Something that scared you? She didn't answer, but her small finger traced the drawing, then pointed to her own ears, then covered her mouth. She'd heard something, and she'd been told to stay quiet. My pulse hammered. Someone told you not to tell your dad? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Who? I breathed. Was it Min? Another nod. So small I almost missed it. Then she drew one more picture, quick, frantic strokes. A man lying on the ground, red everywhere. And standing over him, the man with the red-banded watch. My father had been shot twice in the chest in an alley 3 blocks from this estate. The official story was a deal gone wrong. A dirty cop getting what he deserved. But what if the real story was that my father had gotten too close? What if he discovered that Seo Jun's most trusted guard was actually a traitor? What if Hannah had witnessed my father's murder? I pulled her close, my mind racing. This changed everything. Min wasn't just dangerous to me. He was dangerous to Hannah, to Seo Jun, to everyone in this house. Listen to me, I whispered against her hair. I'm going to keep you safe. I promise. But I need you to trust me.
Can you do that?
She grabbed my hand, squeezed 3 times. I squeezed back 3 times. Our secret code. Our alliance. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed in the West Wing, staring at the ceiling, knowing that somewhere in this house, a murderer walked free. And the little girl everyone thought was broken was actually the only witness to a crime that could bring down everything. I just had to figure out how to prove it before Min realized what Hannah knew. Before he decided she needed to stay silent permanently. Okay, I need your help. Should Lucy tell Seo Jun what she knows, or keep investigating on her own? Also, do you think Min is working alone, or is this bigger? Comment below. And if you're hooked on this story, please hit that like button and subscribe. It literally keeps me writing. Your support means everything. Folded hands. Being invisible is a skill you learn when you're poor. When you're a waitress. When you're someone people look through, not at. I used that skill like a weapon. I'll clean Mr. Seo's office, I told the housekeeper on day 6, keeping my voice casual. Hannah likes to play hide and seek in the afternoon anyway. Gives me something to do. She barely looked up from folding linens. Don't touch anything on his desk. And don't open the filing cabinets. Min's orders. Of course they were. Seo Jun's office was exactly what you'd expect. Leather, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. But it was the antique filing cabinet in the corner that made my hands shake. The same one my father had circled in red in his notes. I waited until I heard Min's voice downstairs, barking orders about a shipment. Then I picked the lock with a bobby pin. My father taught me that when I was 12, said every woman should know how to get out of anywhere she's locked into. He never imagined I'd use it to break into a crime lord's secrets. Inside were folders.
Dozens of them.
Business acquisitions, shipping manifests, personnel files. And there, buried in the back, was a folder labeled Detective James Park, Liability Assessment. My father's name. My vision blurred as I opened it. Inside were surveillance photos of my dad. Meeting with informants. Taking notes outside this very estate. And then, my breath caught a memo. Detective Park has connected the import operation to the Bronx facility. Recommendation: immediate termination. Make it look like corruption. Frame him as dirty. Use his financial struggles as motive. It was signed by someone with the initials DM.
Not Seo Jun.
Someone else. My father hadn't been dirty. He'd been murdered. And then they destroyed his reputation, so no one would look deeper into his death. Tears streamed down my face as I photographed every page with shaking hands. This was it. This was the proof that could clear his name. But it also meant that whoever killed him was still here. Still in this house. And now I had Hannah depending on me. I closed the folder carefully, relocked the cabinet. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might explode. Find what you were looking for? I spun around. Seo Jun stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Every muscle in my body locked. This was it. This was how I died. I was just dusting. Lucy. His voice was quiet. Dangerous. I've had cameras in this office since the day you arrived. I know exactly what you've been looking at. My mouth went dry. I couldn't breathe.
Couldn't think.
He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. Now, he said softly, you're going to tell me why the daughter of Detective James Park is working in my house. And you're going to tell me the truth. I should have run. Should have lied. Should have done anything except what I did. I told him everything. About my father's investigation. About finding the files. About Hannah's drawings and Min's watch, and the way that little girl looked at her father's most trusted guard like he was a monster. My dad wasn't dirty. I finished, my voice breaking. They killed him and made everyone think he was corrupt. And I came here to prove it. To clear his name. The silence that followed felt like drowning. Seo Jun sat down heavily in his chair. He looked older suddenly, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. Your father, he said quietly, came to me 6 weeks before he died. My head snapped up. What?
He called my private line.
Said he had evidence that someone in my organization was running a separate operation.
Drugs.
Human trafficking. Things I explicitly forbid.
His jaw tightened.
I told him I'd look into it, that I'd handle it internally. And then he died. And then he died. He met my eyes. I thought it was a rival syndicate, that they'd gotten to him because he was asking questions. I never knew they framed him as corrupt. The raw pain in his voice shocked me. This wasn't the cold crime boss from the restaurant. This was a father who'd failed to protect someone who'd trusted him. Why didn't you investigate? I demanded. Because I was grieving. He stood abruptly. My wife had just been killed in a car accident that wasn't an accident. Hannah stopped speaking. I was trying to keep my daughter alive while everyone around me was circling like sharks. Your father's death was one more body I couldn't save. The room felt too small, too full of ghosts. DM, I whispered. The memo was signed DM. Who is that? He went very still. Where did you see those initials? In the termination recommendation for my father. His face drained of color. Min's full name is David Min. The world tilted. David Min DM. The man who'd worked for Seo Jun for 12 years. Who had access to everything. Who Hannah was terrified of. Who my father had probably identified as the traitor before he died. He killed your wife too, didn't he? I breathed. The car accident. Seo Jun's hands curled into fists. I can't prove it.
But yes.
I believe he did. And I've been trying to find evidence for 8 months without tipping him off that I suspect him. Why not just fire him? Kill him? I gestured helplessly. You're you. Because I don't know who else he's turned. If I move against him without proof, his allies could kill Hannah. His voice cracked. My daughter is the only thing that matters. Everything I do is to keep her safe. And suddenly I saw it. The bigger picture. This man wasn't the monster I'd thought. He was a father trying to protect his child while trapped in a world that punished weakness. Just like me. Then we find the proof, I said. Together. He studied me for a long moment. Why would you help me? I'm the enemy. Everything your father fought against. I thought about Hannah's drawings. About the way she'd squeezed my hand. About the little girl who'd watched her mother die and her father slowly break. Because she deserves better, I said simply. And so did my dad. Seo Jun extended his hand. I shook it. And just like that, the waitress and the crime boss became unlikely allies in a war neither of us could afford to lose. The plan was simple. I'd keep being invisible. Keep being the nanny who cleaned and served and faded into the background. And I'd watch Min. But I didn't expect him to move so quickly. It was Thursday afternoon. Seo Jun had a meeting with his accountants. Boring finance stuff that would last hours. Min was supervising as always. Standing in the corner like a sentinel. I brought in the tea service. My training from Chongsong kicked in, the muscle memory of balancing trays, reading the room, anticipating needs. That's when I saw it. The slight discoloration in Seo Jun's cup. The way Min's eyes tracked my movements with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The almost imperceptible tension in his shoulders. My father had taught me about poisons when I was 16. Know what to look for, he'd said. Could save your life someday. I'd thought he was being paranoid. Turns out he was being practical. Mr. Seo, I said smoothly, setting the tray down. I apologize, but I believe I prepared your tea incorrectly. Let me remake it. I reached for his cup. Min's hand shot out. Grabbed my wrist. Hard enough to bruise. The tea is fine, he said coldly. Mr. Seo prefers it exactly as prepared. Every person in that room went silent. You didn't touch the help like that. Not in front of the boss. Seo Jun's eyes narrowed. Min, release her. Sir, she's being disrespectful. I said release her. Min's jaw tightened. But he let go. I picked up Seo Jun's cup with trembling hands. looked Min dead in the eye. And then I did something insane. I drank it.
Not all of it.
Just enough to coat my tongue. Enough to taste the bitter almond undertone that meant cyanide. Just like my father had taught me to recognize. The room erupted. Seo Jun shot to his feet. Min's face went chalk white. Lucy. Seo Jun grabbed my shoulders. What did you? Spit it out.
Now.
I spat into a napkin. My tongue was already tingling.
Numb.
Cyanide. I gasped. Small dose. I'll be fine. But you wouldn't have been. Seo Jun turned to Min with an expression that could have melted steel. Explain. Sir, I don't know what she's. Explain. His voice was a roar that rattled the windows. Min's mask finally cracked. Just for a second. But it was enough.
He ran.
The accountants scattered. Seo Jun's other guards moved to chase him. But I grabbed Seo Jun's arm. Hannah. I choked out. He'll go for Hannah. Understanding flooded his face. He grabbed his phone, barking orders as we both sprinted toward the West Wing. Because Min wasn't just a traitor. He was a cornered animal. And cornered animals always went for the throat. We hit Hannah's playroom at a dead run. It was empty. And the window was open. Before we reached the end, I have to ask you, if a person spends their whole life hurting others to build a kingdom, can one act of love truly wash their hands clean? Or is Seo Jun just a monster who finally found something he was afraid to lose? Drop your most unfiltered takes in the comments below. The rain began to fall in heavy, rhythmic sheets as we reached the Han River docks. The Red Dragon sector was a maze of rusted shipping containers and freezing mist. Seo Jun moved like a shadow, his movements brutal and efficient, but I was the one who led the way. My father had taught me how to read the terrain of a crime scene before it even happened. They're in the third warehouse, I whispered, checking the service weapon I had retrieved from my hidden stash. Min will have snipers. We go through the rafters. Seo Jun didn't argue. We moved in a silent, deadly synchronicity. The Mafia king and the detective's daughter. As we breached the entrance, the air exploded with the sound of gunfire splintering wooden crates. Give me the girl, Min. Seo Jun's voice echoed through the hollow warehouse. Min stepped out onto a high metal catwalk, holding a terrified Hannah. He looked cornered, his mask completely disintegrated. Stay back. One more step, and she goes into the dark. The guards moved in, but I was already gone. I had slipped into the shadows, climbing the rusted ladder with the muscle memory of 100 drills. Below me, Seo Jun was a distraction, drawing their fire. When I reached the catwalk, the world narrowed. I vaulted over the railing, a blur of black gear and 20 years of grief. I slammed into Min, our bodies hitting the metal floor hard. Hannah scrambled away, straight into the arms of her father. It's over, Min. I hissed, pinning his arm behind his back until the bone groaned. I pressed my father's badge into his face. A waitress caught you. A ghost caught you. Seo Jun stood 5 feet away, clutching Hannah to his chest as if he would never let her go. He looked at me, covered in grease and rain, holding the man who ruined my life. In that moment, the debt was paid. 6 months later, the morning sun over the coast didn't smell like charcoal or blood. It smelled like sea salt. The Syndicate was a ghost of the past. In a move that shocked the city, Seo Jun had liquidated his criminal assets and turned state's witness against the remaining corrupt officials. I stood on the porch of a small, whitewashed house overlooking the ocean. It was the exact house my father used to draw for me, the retirement he never got to see. The final report came in, Seo Jun said, stepping out behind me. He wasn't wearing a bespoke suit today. He wore a simple linen shirt. Detective Park has been cleared of all charges. The city is issuing a formal apology and a posthumous Medal of Valor. Your family name is clean, Lucy. I felt a weight leave my soul that I had been carrying since I was 18. I looked at the beach where Hannah was playing in the sand, her laughter clear and bright. And what about you? I asked, turning to face him. Is it enough? Seo Jun stepped closer, the coldness that wants to find him replaced by a quiet warmth. I spent my whole life building walls. I thought power was the only thing that could keep her safe. I was wrong. He reached out, his hand hovering near mine. A waitress with a silver badge taught me that the only thing worth having is something you don't have to kill to keep. He handed me a gold key. I bought the cafe down the road. It needs a manager. Someone who knows how to handle difficult customers. I looked at the key, then back at the man who had been my target, and finally, my partner. I realized that my father didn't just want me to find his killer. He wanted me to find the life he had lost. I took his hand. Only if you promise to never mention my incorrect tea service ever again. Seo Jun laughed, a real, deep sound that echoed over the waves. He took my hand, and as Hannah ran up the porch steps to join us, I realized that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do isn't seeking revenge. It's allowing yourself to be happy. Let's talk. Did Seo Jun do enough to earn his happily ever after? Or should his past still haunt him? Would you have been able to forgive Lucy for lying about her identity for so long? Where in the world are you reading from?